The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
I'm Lisa Law. I've traveled the world to seek spiritual knowledge, to visit sacred places, and to find inner peace. Where we go and what we do on our journey is important. So are the people we meet along the way, the ones who support us, inspire us, and help us be more positive. I want you to meet these special people. So welcome to the Sharing Room. It's my great pleasure to have Celeste Philbrick Barr here. Celeste does all the educational programming and the community affairs for Beaver Brook Association in Hollis. So welcome, Celeste. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's very nice to be here for Earth Day.
Oh, you're very welcome. We're taping the show during the week of Earth Week, and so I really wanted to have an organization featured that celebrates Earth and nature all year round. Would you like to tell people who aren't familiar with Beaver Brook what you do?
Beaver Brook is a nonprofit organization dedicated to environmental education and natural resource stewardship. And it's been around for this is our 51st year actually. And the mission of Beaver Brook is promoting an understanding of all the interrelationships in nature. So the human effects on nature, how you and I and the cherry tree and the bees all interrelate. And in doing that, also to promote appreciation of nature. Because if people don't understand it, then they won't appreciate and take care of it. So it's a good mission. It's a very clear mission. And
it's right in the center of Hollis.
Yeah, it actually, the property that is owned by Beaver Brook constitutes 10% of the land in Hollis.
Oh, I didn't appreciate that.
It actually goes over into Brookline a little bit, and there's a separate non-contiguous piece in Milford, and that's where I just came from this morning on the hiking.
Celeste did a hike. You do regular hiking with a group.
Yeah.
3 seasons of the year, you said.
Right. It's a fitness hiking group that was suggested that we start maybe 8 years ago, maybe longer. And it started out 1 day a week, and then it got very popular. And so now we have 2 days a week, Mondays and Fridays, 9 to 11. We have these brisk 2-hour hikes. Sometimes they're hills, sometimes it's flat, but gets people moving aerobically, and we usually go from Labor Day to right now, spring.
So they're all places that are local and easy to get to in southern New Hampshire?
Places all in the area. I usually work with the group, where they're coming from, because people come not only from Nashua and Hollis, but Hudson, Litchfield, Pepperell, Groton, New Boston even, Manchester. So we try to work within a range that's convenient for everyone, but we explore all of these surrounding towns, not just the Beaver Brook trails, but neighboring towns. And people are often astonished to find out all the great trails that are in our backyard.
People don't even realize Mine Falls right here in the center of Nashua too, all the wonderful trails in there.
It's a really great resource. So there's great, usually I would say most all of them are very well mapped. And you can find the maps on either city websites or National Regional Planning or the Conservation Commission. So,
well, and I know Beaver Brook has a lot of trails. Would you like to talk about the different hiking just in the center of Hollis?
Yep, it's a great. It's very close. Probably 6 to 8 miles from the center of Nashua, and you could be at any number of Beaver Brook trailheads. We have over 10 different trailhead locations that you can park and start a hike, but our trails amount to 35 miles, so you could go out and hike all day. And there are some people that do that on a regular basis. They literally go out and hike for 4+ hours. It's just, therapeutic.
Yep. I first learned about Beaver Brook trails. We lived in Hollis, and I had horses growing up, and so I'd ride. You allow people to ride horses on the trails.
Yep.
And bikes are allowed?
Mountain bikes are allowed. Certain trails are identified as multi-use trails, and those trails can have horseback riding and mountain bikes. And then the other trails that are just foot traffic, but they would allow for possibly cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, running, dog walking. Yeah.
Oh yeah, dogs are allowed.
Dogs are allowed. They have to be on a leash, and they have to be cleaned up after, because we are a carry-in, carry-out facility.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you also have an education center at Beaver Brook, which is a really wonderful space. You invited me to come teach a decluttering class there. That was really fun.
It was good.
It's in an old barn, and it's just this wonderful feeling of connecting with nature, just being in that facility too. So would you like to talk a little bit about the programming?
Yeah, sure. We have programming for all ages, which is something that a lot of people don't realize, that we have programs that start as young as 4-year-old classes or parent-child classes to explore nature in a thematic setting. Actually, that's not going on today. Tomorrow, on Tuesday mornings, we have that. We also have programs for adults. We have summer camps for children ages 4 to 16, and we have school programs and programs for other organizations that we put on, which is a big chunk of what we do throughout the school year, and even a little bit in the summer, because some schools are active in the summer as well.
So what are some examples of some upcoming workshops and things that you have?
We have a lot going on in the month of May. We have, let's see, I'll try to take them in order. This next week, we have a Growing the Healing Garden program on Sunday the 26th. And that's
So is it going to be herbs?
Yeah, herbs, yep. Herbs
interesting.
and container herbs too. So if
okay.
people don't have plots to grow a whole herb garden at their house, they
Nice.
could do it in containers. And then going into a little bit about what certain herbs are good for, you know, in terms of
To
healing.
eat, and also, are you going to do any aromatherapy?
Teas, aromatherapy,
Oh,
yep.
nice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that, we have beautiful gardens, which we can talk about in a minute, but that will tap into our gardens, even though they're just sort of waking up right now. But we have big herb gardens at Beaver Brook, which are quite a educational resource unto themselves. So we also have spring bird watching series coming up to go out with one of our teachers who's a very experienced and knowledgeable birder, amongst other things. And we have, I think, 4 different dates coming up, starting on April 30th, and then the rest of them are on, there's Thursdays, and then there's some weekend ones too. For the morning, early birds to go out, and you don't have to be experienced at all in birding. She's going to help people learn some birding by ear, as well as visual characteristics of birds.
It must be relaxing being out in the woods and just listening for the birds and watching
Very
for the
relaxing.
birds. And
It is, yeah. And we have a journaling class. That's another relaxing
okay.
one. That particular teacher is going to offer a journaling class each season. So the first one will be coming up at the end of May, May 31st. It's called The Art of Seeing, creating a nature journal. And then she'll have another one in July, and then in the fall and in the winter, which might be a combination of outdoor observations, and then some indoor journaling. But just teaching people that you don't have to be an artist or a writer to create a nice journal, and it's a very relaxing, peaceful thing to do. Gives you a little mission. It makes you stop and focus on a spot or a place or a tree, flower.
it gets you out of that chatter that goes on in our head all the time, the worries or the thinking about what's going to happen
and you
next.
just focus on
you're
this
just
beautiful
in the
flower
beautiful
and maybe
place.
draw the outline of it. And even if you don't know what it is, you can go back later and figure it out by your drawing or little clues that you write on what you observe. So that's a nice, relaxing adult
that's nice.
class that's coming up. We have, I'm trying to think what else.
So a lot of
Garden
these
birds.
programs, if the show's not airing just in May, so you have a website people can go on and they can see what's coming, and then
Exactly.
you also do a really nice newsletter every month. It's
Right.
that comes
electronically,
and you I highlight different features that are going on at Beaver Brook, different activities, and so that's nice. It's a nice thing to look at.
We used to
every
have a
month.
quarterly newsletter, print newsletter, but now
Yeah.
we are just doing twice a year. So there will be one coming out by the beginning of May, a print newsletter, and it will have the calendar in it. But yeah, the electronic newsletter, people can sign up via our website if they'd like to receive that,
Yeah, it's nice.
of all the upcoming programs.
And then you do summer camps for kids
We
too.
do, yeah. We have about 30 plus classes in the this summer coming up. We have some new ones which are fun, like camp cuisine, learning how to cook, do outdoor cooking,
Over
using
the
different
campfire?
methods.
Oh, that's fun.
You know, and iron crocks and suspended over the fire and buried in the coals.
Oh, that's fun.
That will be a fun one.
Well, and I didn't realize you have a campground there where you can go and camp too.
Right, that's another little hidden secret.
I went on the website to read everything before preparing for the show, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know they did that. Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
know they did that.
It's a group
So-
campsite, and we rent it to other nonprofit groups. So, you know, we can't personally go there and camp with our families, but
Oh,
if
okay.
you're a member
you
of
have an
another
organization.
organization, whether it's a church group, scouting group, a hiking group, any
Yep.
number of groups, they can rent it, and we have
How many
two,
people does it accommodate?
we have 2 sleeping cabins. So there's just wooden bunks for 22 people.
Oh, wow.
And each of them, the cool thing is each of them have wood stoves, so they're really fun for winter camping because you're not sleeping in the snow. You're actually in this cozy little cabin. And then the third building is a cookhouse. So we have a gas cooking stove as well as a wood stove for heating that. And we do a fun program usually in January, a women's overnight winter skills kind of class.
Oh, that sounds
and
fun.
it makes you feel like you're really far away in the mountains, but you're just in Hollis.
Yeah, that's really neat.
And we do a combination of fun and, you know, there might be survival skills or mapping, but then we throw in some other fun activities. So it's women of a variety of ages come to that, and
Yeah, that sounds
it's been
fun.
really fun. I think next winter will be our 10th annual of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, and you do snowshoeing on the trails, and you were saying cross country too. Do you rent snowshoes?
We
at
do.
Beaver
Yep.
Brook?
We have snowshoes for all sizes for children and right on through adults. And we have programs for people who have never snowshoed before. And we put a lot of kids from schools on snowshoes too that have never done it, which is fun.
Yeah.
And we also just rent them to the public.
Snowshoeing's
Cigar.
such a peaceful way to be out in the woods too. It's so quiet
It is,
when you're
yeah.
just moving along and you stop and you listen and look at what's around, and
This was a great
it's
winter for
beautiful
snowshoeing.
with the snow on
With
the
all-
trees, and yeah, it's nice. It's
Snow
very
was so
peaceful.
deep this winter. You could really appreciate
Well,
the
you get a
benefit
really
of
good
them.
workout.
Yeah, it's a very good workout.
I
And
heard it was something like 800 calories an hour. I don't know if it.
It could be, depending on the depth of the snow. It could be. Yeah, it's
a
a
good
very
workout.
cardio workout in deep snow. And even if it's not deep snow, it's nice because you have crampons on the snowshoe to help you if it's an icy
Yeah.
condition.
Do you pack your trails or
No, we don't have any grooming at Beaver Brook. But we have people get out there, and even in the middle of snowstorms, they'll come for cross-country skiing or snowing if they can drive there. So sometimes I'm the first one out on a trail, or sometimes you get out there on the main trails and somebody's already skied out and created a trail. Snowshoeing is a great way to kind of get through really hard weather.
Yeah.
It gets you out
well, it
potentially
makes
in the
you
sun.
appreciate the winter too.
It does, and you can get into some areas that you wouldn't be able to walk just
Yeah.
in your boots.
And snowshoeing I find is really easy. I think anyone can do it
Right.
at
You
a
just need
gentle
strong
pace.
heart.
Yeah, at a gentle pace.
Exactly. Yeah. It
Yeah.
doesn't require any previous skill. The snowshoes today are designed so that you can walk your normal gait. You might have to pick your feet up just a tad higher to get your crampons, above snagging. But other than that, you're not waddling or
Yeah.
walking
Well, and
in a
it's
weird
nice you
way.
do it for beginners, the introductory.
Yeah. It's a good winter activity. It doesn't require a lot of equipment, and then if you don't have your own, you can usually find a place to rent them. So.
You mentioned your gardens too. That your gardens are another wonderful feature. I know you have the Maple Hill Garden, and
Yeah.
now you have a butterfly garden. Would you like
That's
to talk
part
about
of
this?
it. Yep, that was a Girl Scout project to map the gardens at Beaver Brook and identify the nectar and food plants of the different life stages of native butterflies in our area. And she gained certification from the North American Butterfly Association for the gardens as a butterfly habitat. But she also created a map on our wildflower trail and identified a great number of wild plants beyond the cultivated ones that provide food sources for native butterflies. So there's
Oh,
sort of a
interesting.
couple of pieces to
Yeah, good
that
for her.
butterfly garden. Yeah, our gardens are beautiful. And they'll be the gardeners meet. There's a crew of volunteer gardeners in addition to one staff horticulturalist, and they meet. Typically, the larger group meets on Mondays, but people can come and volunteer any weekday in the gardens, and we're always looking for extra gardeners because the gardens are pretty extensive. We have 12 theme gardens at the Maple Hill Farm where our office is. And they too have a little map, which is also on our website, so you can see a variety of types of gardens. The herb garden I mentioned is a big visual feature at
So it's a good place to go volunteer if you're interested in learning more about having your own gardens.
Absolutely. I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of plants there that you can learn about how they grow, what they might be useful for, what their scents are like. We have a fragrance garden. We have a Victorian garden that actually contains some plants that have been there for over 150 years at that house, that we have records of the owners planting a certain rose bush or a certain flowering shrub. It's we have a little gazebo that was built as a tea house for the owners, the Colburns of that property, and some of those plants go back to them.
Do you do any special events in the gardens?
We have
any weddings or any special events like that?
That's sort of a new thing coming up. We've had a few private, small weddings, garden weddings that were limited size, usually just the ceremonies we've had in the gardens, and not gotten into hosting the receptions because of all the impact. And we don't have a huge parking lot for giant weddings, so we haven't been able to accommodate that. But we have hosted, our fall festival takes place inside and outside every September. We have a huge art show in the big barn. And we have live music, live animal presentations, and we have a big tent set up all around the gardens for owl shows, birds of prey demonstrations, and so those highlight the gardens. Last May in 2014, we celebrated our 50th birthday, so we had a huge celebration in the gardens with big tents and
nice.
Honored guests that go back 50 years, to the founding of Beaver Brook. So we have a lot of good opportunities to attract people into the gardens, and we're planning more of them actually too, more tours and things.
Yeah, that's great. You were saying earlier that there's been a lot of research about the benefits of being out in nature, and how now you're going into schools and teaching kids to connect with Earth and connect with nature. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. That's a big part of what we do, and Beaver Brook has always been trying to do that, but it's interesting, 10 years ago there was a book published, Last Child in the Woods, I don't know if you've heard of that, by Richard Louv, and he's the person who coined the term nature deficit disorder. And his books are very fascinating. They highlight a lot of research. They aren't just hypothetical theories, but a lot of research that documents how nature can heal us, how nature helps children develop into fully rounded human beings, how it can counter depression, ADD, obviously prevent obesity and diabetes if you're active and not
if you're getting outside,
sedentary and overweight. A lot of great research in that book. He also talks about why children aren't playing outside. What are the causes of children not playing outside like they did when, at least I was young.
Well, when I was a kid, I was told to go outside. We were yelled at if we stayed inside too much. My mother sent us outside.
And you were riding horses and doing that.
I was out. We lived, my family owned Temple Mountain Ski Area, and I lived right on the mountain. So I climbed trees, built forts. We had caves on the mountain, and so my friends and I would explore that. And then my sister and I would be off on our ponies all day and just roaming and exploring, and then in the winter we skied. So I grew up with this connection with nature and being tied into the rhythms of our whole business was around, just like yours is, around being nature and the rhythms of nature. And I really think, I know in my own life, when I am feeling the most stressed, if I go outside and I dig in the dirt, do some gardening, or just go for a snowshoe, or sit and just watch the clouds or the leaves move on the branches, it does bring about that feeling of peace and calm because we're
really
reconnecting back in again.
And it's been measured enough now. I mean, I just keep collecting more and more research studies that they're measuring it. They measure the things that our mothers knew. When they told us to go outside and play, they knew it was good for us. But now there's real documentation. And it's just really sad to see children playing an average of, the numbers vary with the age and each year, but basically about 15 minutes. Sometimes I've read 15 minutes a day or 15 minutes a week of free play. That doesn't include going to soccer and going to baseball because that's structured.
Yeah.
And there's only certain things you can do when you're doing those activities. But actual free play, very, very limited number of minutes per week that children are doing that. And that's really sad because what happens in free play is you're kind of establishing in your mind like a little world and how you problem solve.
Out.
Right, building forts. You're figuring out how things. Oh, that collapsed. How do I do that better the next time?
Those nails will work better than those nails, and you figure it out.
And you make up little villages, and you have dynamics between
then
neighbors.
You have play. Yeah, exactly. That goes along with it all.
And so that's a huge thing that's lacking for children, and not to mention the physical benefits of being outside, but. So Richard Louv examined why those things happen, and one of them is perceived stranger danger. But what everybody thinks their kids are going to be abducted. There's all these controversies about letting your kids walk home from school or letting your kids ride their bike up and down the sidewalk unsupervised by you.
Well, it probably doesn't happen more now. It just is reported more.
Absolutely
it's probably
doesn't.
Reported more, and the news picks it up more.
It's the news is what they found because they actually looked at FBI findings for reported, abductions. It's the same as it was in 1970. It hasn't increased, and it's the news. We now hear that one incident.
And it brings
I think it's
up
about
all the
51
fear.
times because the news repeats over and over and over again.
I stopped watching the news. I can't get up in the morning and watch it.
It makes you feel toxic.
I know. Every morning I would be like drinking my coffee going,
or the front headlines of the newspaper,
Yeah.
So that's one thing, if we could just get people educated to realize that there is not an increase in stranger danger, that the things you're hearing on the news that happen all around the world, 40 years ago, you didn't know that happened.
I think kids are a lot smarter now about those things too.
Yeah, because they have to be, it's part of their curriculum to be educated at a very young age about stranger danger. So that's one thing, and then just that we like sort of the helicopter parenting thing that people need to realize.
Well, and seasons used to end. A sports season would come to an end, you'd have a break, and then you'd maybe go on to the next season. We weren't overstructured in the travel teams, and there is a benefit to all that exercise, but I see a lot of stress that comes along with doing things, all of these different activities at such a high degree. I see it in my own kids, they get exhausted.
They do.
I, as a parent, get exhausted. You're working, you're doing all these other things. So.
And that's extra stuff, that's not primary.
Yeah.
So what we found is that if we have programs for families, or we get kids out, with their schools maybe in a supervised fashion, and we get them excited about being outside, or we get them with their families so that they realize they're in a safe environment to do these things, to do a scavenger hunt or a hike or go birding, then the families, as the parents get more comfortable, then they'll hopefully take their kids out for hikes. Because now I know these trails, they're close to my house, there's no stranger danger, there's never been any crimes
and they're
committed.
well marked.
They're very well marked, you won't get lost.
If you walk far enough, you'll end up someplace in
Somebody's
Hollis
house.
you recognize.
Yeah, so that's we've changed things. It's not just here's a map, go on your own. We try to offer people more guided or safe suggestions for doing things together as a family. And
do you have people worry about ticks and mosquitoes?
Yeah, you have to worry about ticks. They are a big problem where we live here. They really are.
Yeah.
And what they carry. Not unto themselves, they're not a big problem, but what they carry is the problem. And they do carry multiple diseases, and they are bad diseases. Yeah. So the thing that we recommend is don't stay inside because of that, but try to prevent the attachment of ticks to you. Long pants.
Wearing your socks.
Yep, looking like kind of a geek with your socks. But also there's the whole use of insect repellents. A lot of 20 years ago, we were advised not to use DEET because they thought it was causing neurological problems, and that's been reversed, those findings. So now the EPA, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the CDC, and a lot of our overseeing organizations now recommend the use of DEET in a low percentage, 20 to 30, is safe even for children. That goes on your skin before you go out, particularly your lower butt. Yep, that goes on your skin, so under your pants, on your ankles, round under your shirt.
Interesting.
And then, you know, anywhere else. So that's safe for your skin in the right percentage, concentration. And then for your clothing, permethrin is another kind of repellent, but it's not for your skin. And that's where some people have said, oh, that's, you know, it's toxic. But the Army used to put it right on people, and they did have problems. You don't put it on your skin
around
like
your
a cream.
face
You treat your clothes, and it dries, and it's active in a dry state. And that ticks will not land on your pants. They will not climb. So you can spray your hiking boots, your pants. You can buy clothing that's treated with this, which I know a lot of people are doing now. It's expensive, but you can also send your clothing out. A lot. Yeah, we at work have sent our hiking pants and our hiking shorts, and sometimes shirts, socks, and we usually do our own boots, spray them, but very effective.
So you have information if someone was interested in that to contact you?
Yes, there's great resources on that now. University of Rhode Island is sort of a leader in tick prevention and strategies.
Oh, that's good to know.
And so people can be safe, and they can prevent the ticks from attaching to them, which then you don't have to go to the next step of monitoring.
We all know people who have had Lyme. And
yes,
tough.
It is tough. It really is tough. So, but and some people, still worry about the insect repellents and all that. But it's really risk assessment. You have to look at, what is going to happen to me if I stay inside the house and never go out. Right. That's not a good outcome.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
it's not healthy.
That's not healthy either.
And then, what's going to happen to me if I use insect repellent? Well, occasionally someone could use the wrong thing or apply something improperly. But what is the risk of getting Lyme disease or something else? It's a really bad disease, undiagnosed, and you can cure it if you get diagnosed early. But if you don't, then it's a really bad disease. So you have to weigh all these things to decide, what's the best.
Yeah, it's nice to hear you do some education around that too.
Yeah.
So do you have classes that teach energy conservation, or with it being Earth Day, I wanted to talk about some tips people can do just to include in their everyday life, like not leaving the water on when they're brushing their teeth, walking more maybe instead of getting in their car and driving.
Yep.
Do you have some other tips that you'd like to share just in we're thinking about Earth?
Yeah, well the two, I've been on the recycling committee in my town for 25 years, I think. So I'm really big into composting and recycling and minimizing waste. Even when you're shopping, you can be thinking about how you're buying things, whether you're buying them in containers that can be recycled, or does it have to go in the trash? When you're looking
and what are you putting it in the checkout line? Are you bringing your recycling bags, or are you getting more plastic bags?
Yeah, we've been talking about that a lot on our committee about. Some whole countries have banned grocery shopping bags. Those single-use ones.
I'm surprised we haven't banned water bottles. In truth, we put so many. I forget the number, but it's
trillions. Yeah.
You could go. Somebody said you could circle Earth with
Several times,
the water bottles every year that we drink.
Yep. Yeah. It is. It's a really outrageous amount of plastic for one gulp. Yeah, so minimizing that, reusing bottles, steel bottles. You don't have to worry about any of the plastic issues. Stainless steel water bottles are a good thing to use, and I think the whole country of I know India, and there's another not Tibet. There's another country that has entirely banned single-use shopping bags. And then some cities in our country have also banned them. And so we're looking into that, is it a good idea to ban them, or is it a good idea to make it an option like stores did? Earth Day 1990, it was a big push. A lot of our area, New England grocers, we're saying if you bring your own bag, we'll take 5 cents off of
Yeah.
your fee. And some stores do that today, but it'd be nice if all of our big stores
I
maybe.
noticed a lot of the big stores now have a bin at the entryway where you can put bags from any store in, so at least they're getting recycled.
Trying to recycle them, yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, so yeah, bring your shopping bags. You just have to train yourself, you know, and keep them in the car and return them to the car every time. I think by now people have been giving away those bags so long, we should all have a couple of reusable bags in our houses. But big things, to be honest, it's some of the biggest impacts we have as just ordinary consumers are the food we choose to eat and the cars that we drive. Those are the two biggest things if you look up in any sort of cradle
I've heard
to
it
grave.
helps if you're a vegetarian, because
Really,
there's a
yeah.
lot of process. There's a lot that goes energy-wise that goes into
Producing
farming
meat,
animals
yes.
and things like
Yeah,
that.
huge amount of petroleum goes into growing the foods for the livestock that we eat. And some meats are worse than others, but that is a good way to really reduce your footprint on this earth, is to eat less meat.
Well, and to grow your own vegetables too.
Yep.
You know, it's
and
nice.
eat local. So
Yeah.
instead of choosing garlic from California, that's trucked 3,000 miles to you, and there's a lot of
The
carbon
same-
output there.
We're going to be in strawberry season soon. And
Right.
instead of buying the California strawberries and eating the ones from
Buy
the local farms
ones,
here.
yeah. They're going to taste like different things
It
altogether.
does taste
yeah.
wonderful.
But
It's
yeah,
always
people
one of
grow
my
garlic in
happiest
Hollis,
days.
so you can buy local garlic, or you
When
can
you're
buy,
going to teach how to do the herb class too,
Yep.
which will be nice.
Yeah. So that, yeah, and then the driving is a huge piece. Our transportation is our other huge
People don't
footprint.
think about that all of these things have to be shipped across the country and that requires a huge amount of fuel to
Yeah.
get them here.
Yeah, it's a big item. So, you know, in consolidating trips, if you're, instead of jumping in the car every time you need one little thing, like, oh, I've
Yeah.
got to go to the library, oh, I need a quart of milk. Consolidate trips.
We don't
and-
always think about that.
No, and it's, you know, if you kind of just plan your day a
Well,
little
and then
bit.
if you plan more, you have more time to go to Beaver Brook and enjoy
and
life.
take a hike. Right.
Because we do forget to play. We
Yeah.
do forget, you know, we get so caught up in work and all these things we feel we have to do that we don't schedule time for ourselves and we
Yeah.
don't schedule this time to get out and play. And so
Yeah.
it's wonderful you have all the programs there because it reminds us to do that.
Yeah, recharge yourself.
Yeah.
Be ready for the next
Well, it's
day.
a big part of what I teach as a feng shui practitioner. When I work in people's homes, I make sure that their home's functioning well for them so that they do have time to get out and do the things they like to do and have spaces in their home that connect them back to nature. That's a huge part of feng shui, is
Yeah.
this connection we have with earth, and because we are putting energy out all the time, and we get depleted if we don't fill the well up. We don't have anything left to give again.
Right.
So spending time out in nature really helps to refill that well up
Yeah,
again.
you'll be a happier person, you know, when
Oh,
you go
yeah,
back in the house and then you're, you know, dealing with your spouse, children, family
Well, and I
members.
think it gives you a bigger perspective too. When you stop the everyday thinking and all of those everyday worries and you get out in nature, you get connected to something bigger than the here and now. It reminds, or at least it does for me.
Yeah, and all of us, not just kids, we need to really unplug. And that's the
Yeah.
other thing when we're talking
Well,
about
and
how...
teaching kids how to unplug, because that's
Yeah.
a skill you have to learn.
Yeah, if they don't know how to play outside anymore, you have to show them what they can do safely. But, you know, the fact that they're only playing outside a few minutes a day or a week, the amount of screen time that kids are getting, it's over 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Of some electronic, whether it's a phone, whether it's their computer, whether it's a game, TV, it's really imbalanced. But we're all, you know, we're all kind of falling into that trap. We all spend a lot of time
We're
in
all
front of computers
tied
and
into our
devices.
technology.
Yeah, so a lot of the people that hike with me, they just choose to leave their phones in the car.
Yeah, it's
you
a
know.
great idea.
We might have one for an emergency, but we don't all need to be talking while we're out there trying to get some peace.
No, it's smart. We even here in our backyard, we have a fire pit, and my husband and I love being out there. And I make him leave his gadgets and his cell phone and his computer inside to just have a chance to be out there and
That's
and
nice.
reconnect that way.
And that's nice because you feel like you're
We have
away at your little
we have
campsite.
some nature here in the back.
Yeah,
We do feel, we
yeah.
pretend we're camping. We'll go
Yeah.
out there and light the
Stay
fire on a
until dark.
weekend morning,
Yeah.
and we'll eat our breakfast out there and sit
Nice.
and drink coffee. And so we have our own little campground back
That's
there.
great.
Your campground has a neat fire pit, I saw.
We have a beautiful fire circle. Yeah, it was
looks
built
nice.
in, I think, the 70s, and it's really stood up quite well. And it you can fit maybe 40, 50 people. It's a very big
yeah.
circle. We have
neat.
some fun programs. In particular, I'm thinking of the Valentine night hike that we've been doing for a number of years, where the last few years have been lining the trail with candles in
Aw.
mason jars, and people strap on snowshoes. As they arrive, they check in at the yurt. It might be couples, but
The
we've had
yurt's fun to see too.
the yurt is a cool building. That's our newest classroom. But
Well, and you
we've
have
had
a wigwam out there too.
Yeah, we
right?
do. Yep, we have a bark wigwam made out of ash tree bark that we cut on the property. One of our teachers is really expert at Native American skills. She's taught that at other centers before she came to us, and she took that on, building a wigwam for us. And that's not our first one. She's built one before. They only last
I got
a
to
certain
go when
amount
my
of years.
kids were in kindergarten.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it's a cool attraction. And it's a very easy hike for that reason, that a lot of the little kids come for Native American, to learn about how Native Americans of the woodlands live, which is different than the teepee.
Yeah, it's interesting to learn how they lived here
Yeah.
in New Hampshire and
Yeah.
in this area.
Pretty different than the movie kind of Plains Indians.
I heard that Nashua is in Indian, it means the river of shiny stones or something about, there's the book on Nashua.
Yeah, the
The-
river runs
Yeah, is it the river
wild,
runs?
right? It's not a
I
river
can't
runs through it, that's Montana. River runs wild, yes, the story of the Nashua River and how it was cleaned
named.
up. Yep. A lot of, if you look on a map in New Hampshire, the rivers in particular are, vast majority of them are Native American, Abenaki or
Yeah.
Pawtucket Native American names. And it's fun to look up what they mean or what the origin was. Usually something to do with fishing or a landmark or a village. Most of the villages were on rivers and lakes in New Hampshire
That makes sense.
because you needed the food resources, the water.
It was probably easier to move around.
And they traveled,
Yeah.
that way, either on foot or by canoe, yeah.
I'm
So-
curious more about your butterfly garden. Did she get a sense of how many butterflies come there every summer?
Oh, yeah. Well, not a census in terms of totals, but in terms of species. So we do have a species list of what you could expect based on the food plants or what has been observed. We actually also had another student volunteer who has gone into environmental conservation as a major. And she started coming in her young teens, and she is an amazing entomologist. She knows
Oh.
most insects of this area by Latin name, and she knows what plants they need for their life cycle. And she's a wonderful photographer, so she actually
interesting.
has photographed them on these plants. So we have some of her photos on our gallery of photos.
You have a beautiful website. If people are interested in seeing some of the pictures of the gardens and the
Right.
trails, and you have a lot of maps on your website.
Yep, you can
Do you
find
want to let
trail
people
maps.
know what that
Sure. Our
is?
website is beaverbrook.org, and it has trail maps for all of our properties. It has trail guides with background history on some of the landscape, natural history, tree identification.
Nice.
So there's a number of guides. There's a bird nesting trail that you can follow, and it has bird nesting boxes along different
Oh, that's
parts of the
nice.
trail in different habitats, and they're all constructed for particular species. So it will show you what a flicker house looks like. And you'll see one in
Interesting.
place, and you'll see what, the ordinary chickadees, wrens, but so that's a fun trail to follow. The gardens, like I said, are all mapped too. But yeah, we have a lot of pictures
Well, and your
of,
upcoming class schedules are on there too.
correct, all the whole calendar's on there. We just went to online registration too, which is a new
Oh, okay.
thing. So if people are interested, they no longer have to wait till the office is open to register for something. They can just go online and sign up.
And you don't have to be a member to just
Nope.
drop in. You can
Correct.
go anytime. Anyone from the public can go anytime, right?
Yep, Beaver Brook is open 365 days a year.
Oh,
so
is it?
even not, the office may not be open, but the trails and the property
So
is
people,
open.
if they wanted to go on a holiday, can walk
Yeah,
around. Oh,
yeah,
that's great.
absolutely. All holidays and dawn to dusk usually, so we don't worry about, cars after dark that we have to go looking for the people. But yeah, dawn to dusk, and the trails are well mapped and well labeled, and so we always advise people, even if they're very familiar with our trails, to just always carry a map. Because at 35 miles, you could hike
Yeah,
for
you
a
could
long
get turned
time.
around a little bit.
Yeah, so you can get that online. You can even scan it from our kiosk with a card reader
interesting.
and
Okay.
have it on your phone if that's easier.
If you didn't leave
if
your
you
phone
forgot
in the
it.
car.
right, that's true. Just take the paper map. It's quieter.
Well, is there any final things that you'd like to share with everybody about Beaver Brook or being in nature?
Oh, I should share, since this is a Nashua program, I would love to share one of the favorite things that's happened this spring and winter. We have had a great opportunity, thanks to a bunch of generous donors and some granting organizations, to invite students from some of the low-income schools in New Hampshire to Beaver Brook. These are schools that wouldn't be able to afford a field trip or just the transportation, just the few
great.
dollars per child for
Nice.
the bus. Those families wouldn't be able to fund that.
Yep.
So we were able to invite those schools to Beaver Brook. So for about 6 weeks solid, every
that's
day,
great.
we had kids from, the majority of them were from Nashua and Manchester, all ages from kindergarten, well, most of them were kindergarten to 5th grade, and they did maple sugaring.
Oh, fun.
And the things that they came out with were just, I have their little notes of
Aw.
them snowshoeing.
Oh, very cute.
So adorable.
Very
and tapping trees and finding animal tracks.
Aw. I saw some of these pictures on your website this morning too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
But they were
of
just
the kids.
so appreciative because it
great.
was so new to them. And many of them said, we just start out going from the yurt or the introduction over to the sugar bush. We take them on a little side trail, and these children were saying, this is my first time in the woods. These are
Aw.
kids from downtown, right
Yeah.
here. I've never been in the woods before. I've never seen
great.
a porcupine before, or a track,
Oh,
or
that's
anything.
great.
Deer track. So
That's
that was
great.
very
It's a nice opportunity.
wonderful.
That's great.
And all of our teachers appreciate it as much as the public school teachers and the kids.
That's great.
It's good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here.
thanks for inviting me.
We are going to end with a wonderful video. It's a flyover from a drone of Beaver Brook, so you can see the facility, and it's about 2,000 acres
Yeah.
all together, and you'll see some of the buildings from the drone. And so thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here.
thanks
And
for
I
inviting
hope
me.
everyone gets out to Beaver Brook this summer and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for joining us.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.